What happens if the internet gets shut down, or if it's a cyber attack on cryptocurrency and now you can't access your money?
So the nature of the distributed network, the nodes in cryptocurrencies, means that they're all over the world. You'd have to shut the entire world's internet down. There is no single point of attack. It's not Facebook. Facebook is one company. So there is no single point of attack. So it makes it extremely hard to stop. Thermonuclear war could do that, but your crypto still doesn't disappear because the blockchain will always exist. And as long as you've got it on your cold wallet stored, it can't be taken away. So it is kind of nuclear proof. Just because the internet goes down for a bit and you can't make a payment, well, figure it out with barter. Because if the internet's gone down, none of the banking system works around the world. You've got no way of making a payment. So it's simply not a crypto problem. It's a world banking problem. So all cash payments, because 90% of every payment on Earth or 99% of every payment on Earth is done electronically. So that's kind of not an argument for crypto, but what's amazing with crypto is there's no single point of attack. So there's no cyber hack that can hack the Bitcoin blockchain. It's impossible to do, or as impossible as it possibly could be.
Are you worried about what China is doing, though, and putting on regulations on cryptocurrency? And are you worried that that could potentially happen in the United States if the central banks and the Federal Reserve Bank say people are getting too much power with cryptocurrency and then they put on more regulations?
I think it will get regulated. And just because Apple is a security that is regulated doesn't make it less attractive. And many people will own Apple. So it doesn't have to be the Wild West. There can be an element of regulation. Last night, I spoke to the chief fintech officer for the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and he explained their approach to regulation, which is, I think, what everybody's going to adopt in the end, which is we can't just keep using these 1934 securities laws and tell you what you can and cannot buy. What we're going to have to do is give you a warning to say, this is risky. And are you sure you want to do this? We are not comfortable with this because you could lose all of your money. That is a much better approach and giving people the freedom to do what they want. Regulators are still struggling with this. Now, the issue is, it's currently a $2 trillion market cap. My fear is by the time we get to like March of next year, this is going to be a $10 trillion market cap. Regulators can't go back and fine all these businesses, tell you it's illegal. What, a $10 trillion industry? So there's going to be a grand compromise. Regulation is going to be part of the space, but they're not going to be able to force you out of it. China is a autocratic regime and they have forced people out. But guess what? It still goes because it's on the internet. It's impossible to stop. You just need to circumvent it. So Chinese people just go abroad. So they just have it in Singapore and they hold it in Singapore. They only access it via Singapore. They go back to China. There's nothing they can do. The Chinese are trying to introduce their own central bank digital currency. And what they're actually trying to do is stamp out capital flight out of the country and excess speculation on leverage, which China's got a historical problem with. So it's not that they're anti-crypto, it's they're currently anti how it's being operated within the system.
Do you think the Federal Reserve Bank would ever try to create their own cryptocurrency?
Yes, for sure. Be called a central bank digital currency. It'll most likely run on one of the private stablecoin rails like Circle or Paxos or one of these. And it will not be a full cryptocurrency with a limited supply because that's not the central bank's job. The central bank's job is to vary the supply of money to help drive the economy. So it'll just be probably a blockchain version of fiat currency of the US dollar, which means that I can send you money instantaneously. We get around all of that. We've got proof of the money and its transfer and where it's gone and the storage and all of these things. And they get to build in KYC and AML into all of the network. And so that helps velocity of money. It destroys middlemen. It makes the business of money much more frictionless. But it's not a cryptocurrency in its own right because that's kind of the opposite of what central banks do.
On more of just kind of like a world level, what would happen then if the Fed starts losing their power or control over money? Like, what does that mean for society?
What it means for society is it depends how they lose control. If they lose control quickly, it means you can see a hyperinflation, i.e. that's when the value of your currency collapses because there's no faith in the currency. I think that's unlikely. I think the most likely outcome is just that more people opt out of the financial system into this new parallel financial system. So that removes the power of the banks and it changes the landscape. So obviously the Federal Reserve and the SEC want to regulate as much of this as possible, but it becomes harder to do because it's so distributed. Nobody owns these things. Many of them, they just exist. And so who do you prosecute? What do you do? So they're going to have to accept that money is going to be out of the system. And in my viewpoint, over time, it creates a competition between the central banks and these digital currencies to not debase your currency. Because if you do, we now have an ability to vote that we don't like it. We did before with gold, and gold has always existed as a way out of the financial system. And you know, you've obviously got Indian heritage, as do I, and Indians understand this completely at core. And it's for the very same thing: is the government can do what they want, but if I physically own my gold, it will protect its purchasing power over time. Proven. This is no different.
Interesting. So somebody hearing that's going to think, all right, I need to take some of my cash and go into cryptocurrency. Do they just go in and buy, or should they wait for a dip or a dollar cost average? What do you think is the best way for somebody to start buying cryptocurrency?
So psychologically, well, it's been sideways correcting actually, pretty much. Ethereum and Bitcoin reached their peak between March and May this year. So that means it's been correcting and storing up power for potentially the next move higher. So it's not a bad time to just put the money in. If you decide you've got a couple of grand you want to put in, now's a good enough time as any. Then dollar cost average. So then start averaging in a bit of your paycheck and put it in to crypto. So then when it does sell off, you're buying. So you'll keep adding into the weakness and into the strength. And over time, that strategy will work well if you're looking at a long-term point of view. I think it's probably a bit late to wait for a large correction because we just had one, which was a 50% correction over the early summer. So that was the time to really deploy into a correction. So I don't think you've got that opportunity. Sure, could we fall 20% and you could cheekily add some more? Fine. Use your dollar cost averaging for that. But I'd be of the opinion that it's been correcting for so long and traded sideways for so long. It's a pretty good time.
What about DeFi? Can you talk about what DeFi is and how people are making money off of that? Because the whole concept is very new.
So right now, if you have a bit of savings, you stick it in the bank, you earn a big fat zero in interest. DeFi replicates how the banking system creates interest, which is people want to borrow stuff from you, lend stuff, and there's an interest rate for that. And there's another thing called staking, which is you put your coins to secure the network and you get paid a yield by the network for doing so, some of the rewards of the network. And they generate yield. So the yields in the DeFi space, in the crypto space, are somewhere between, if you're just lending out straight Bitcoin, it's about 3%. But if you're doing other things like staking or some of these yield plays, which have a little more risk, you're getting 8, 10, 15, 20% yields. So suddenly you get interest on your savings. Now, the safest way of doing it, in my view, is stable coins because they're pegged to the US dollar. So there's a stable coin like Paxos, which I think is USD. That is a very secure underlying stable coin run by world-class people with regulatory approval. And you can lend it out via an exchange or others for about 8%. So you've got US dollar, no price risk. You don't care whether crypto goes up or down. And you're getting 8% on your income. That dawned on me recently because a mate of mine took off some of his Bitcoin bet. And he suddenly sent me a WhatsApp saying, oh my God, I've just realized I'm not going back to the financial system. Now, again, he's a lucky guy. He's got plenty of savings. He's got some income. He owns his own house. But he took some money off, some profits. And then he put it in his stable coin. And he's like, I'm now getting 8% yield on my profits. He said, why should I go back to a normal bank? And I can transfer this instantaneously anywhere around the world. So DeFi is that. Now, there's a lot of different protocols and they're all complicated and it's not an easy world to understand. There are relatively simple ways that you can do it with exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken and Binance and stuff like that. The DeFi protocols, you can also just own the tokens. So you find something like Aave or Compound, and you buy the token. And what you're saying there is you're going to take a bet that the network's going to grow because people all want to use this new DeFi technology to generate yield, because the whole insurance industry, the pensions industry is all going to move into this space because the yields are better. So those tokens will go up. So that's another way of playing. It's just own the token. So if you don't want the yield, but you believe in this decentralized non-bank finance that's taking over the world, buy the tokens. So there's different ways of playing the space.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, here's a video on things you need to know if you want to become wealthy that I think you love. And while you're at it, download our free guide on investing your money in the stock market. And as always, keep hustling. Do you think that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is the future? Is that a way for someone to now build wealth quickly?
Well, it is, but it's highly valued now. I have a 3% allocation in Bitcoin in my own portfolio. I have 5% weighting